difficult engineering of tunnels and waterways.
So this is criminal. We're trying to find and establish who built it, why they built it.
What if fast food joints weren't just places to grab a quick bite, but actually gateways to hidden worlds? Sounds crazy, right?
Abandoned for nearly 2,000 years.
But when police stumbled upon a hidden tunnel under a McDonald's, they were definitely shocked by what they found. From ancient escape routes to mysterious treasures hidden in unexpected places.
It's unique. There are a few tunnels around the Alton area.
There's no shortage of surprises lurking beneath the surface. Could it be that these tunnels were more than just a way to get from point A to point B? What secrets have been buried for centuries, waiting to be uncovered?
Just an access A to B tunnel.
1. The tunnel under McDonald's. Turns out there's no wild tunnel mystery beneath a McDonald's, but there is one beneath the McDonald's residence. And yes, we're talking about a legit underground space. When the police first caught wind of it, let's just say they weren't exactly prepared for what they'd find. Enter Elton McDonald, a 22-year-old construction worker who spent the last 5 years carefully building a 33-foot-long tunnel under his home. Now, before you start thinking this was a covert operation or some underground hideout for shady dealings, let's set the record straight. Elton wasn't hiding from the law. He wasn't even hiding from his parents. He was simply trying to create his very own man cave. And not just any man cave, but one where he could kick back, throw some burgers on the grill, and watch TV. Just underground. Totally normal, right? When the authorities found the tunnel earlier this year, they got a little freaked out. Fair enough, it was hand dug, and they were just a stone's throw from a stadium that was set to host the Pan Am Games. Naturally, they jumped to conclusions and started imagining some sort of highly calculated terror plot. But surprise, surprise, it wasn't quite that dramatic. Elton, ever the chill guy, finally stepped forward to explain. It wasn't really a tunnel, he said, in a tone that basically screams, "I'm just a guy with a hobby." He had bigger plans to expand the space and add a couple of rooms. He even envisioned installing a TV down there for maximum relaxation. There was no underground criminal empire, no secret society, just a guy who loved BBQs and had a serious desire to escape into a world of his own, literally. The real kicker? Elton didn't even realize his DIY project had made the news until his mom called him up. She was watching TV when the discovery flashed across the screen, and she couldn't believe it. Imagine her shock, and his, when they realized the tunnel had somehow gone from private hobby to international news. Elton was just hoping for some peace and quiet, and instead, he found himself at the center of a media frenzy. And that little religious setup near one of the tunnel entrances, that was a rosary, crucifix, and poppy. His sister's thoughtful gift after a minor cave-in. Because sure, why not decorate your secret hangout like it's the set of a low-budget action film? So, while the police may have had their moments of pale-faced panic, Elton was just living his best BBQ and TV life under his own roof. And really, isn't that the dream? But hey, while it's not a tunnel under a McDonald's, we did uncover one beneath a KFC. Now that's finger-licking history. 2. Fast food with a side of crime. Imagine ordering a bucket of fried chicken with a side of fries, while just beneath your feet, there's a secret tunnel shuttling illegal substances across international borders. In 2018, a former KFC restaurant in San Luis, Arizona, turned out to be hiding more than just empty buckets and greasy fryers. This location had a 600-foot tunnel connecting the US to a home in Mexico, and it wasn't delivering late-night snacks. The tunnel, concealed within the kitchen of the abandoned KFC, was a sophisticated operation. It stretched underground for nearly 600 feet, with part of it dipping down to a depth of 22 feet. Authorities discovered it after following a tip and obtaining a search warrant for the former fast food spot. What they uncovered was shocking. A tunnel just 8 inches wide, yet carefully outfitted with rails to make transporting goods quick and efficient. It was a high-stakes delivery system, but instead of burgers and fries, the cargo was drugs. Investigators estimated the illegal tunnel funneled over $1 million worth of narcotics. The operation moved methamphetamine, cocaine, heroin, and fentanyl, a powerful drug that's 50 to 100 times stronger than morphine. Just 3 kilograms of fentanyl discovered could have potentially provided over 3 million doses. The sheer volume of drugs found was enough to send shivers down the spines of the law enforcement team. This wasn't a slapdash attempt at sneaky border crossing either. Whoever orchestrated this underground pathway knew exactly what they were doing. The narrow dimensions, strategic depth, and equipment like rails suggest this was a carefully planned operation meant to avoid detection. It wasn't just about getting drugs from point A to point B. It was about doing it quickly and without leaving a trace. The US-Mexico border has seen its fair share of hidden passages, but a tunnel hidden in a fast food joint's kitchen? That's a new one for the books. This discovery shows just how far smugglers are willing to go, and how creative they can be. A seemingly unassuming restaurant in a sleepy border town turned out to be the front for a multi-million-dollar drug operation. It's a prime example of how everyday locations can hide the unexpected, proving that sometimes crime is closer than you think, right under your favorite fast food hangout. The case left local residents stunned, not only because of the scale of the drug trafficking, but because it all happened in a familiar spot that most people wouldn't think twice about. If there's a lesson here, it's that crime doesn't always look suspicious. Sometimes it wears the disguise of a greasy paper bag and a catchy slogan, serving up danger alongside a side of biscuits. Loving these discoveries? Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more wild finds. You never know what we'll dig up next. 3. The dino found in the dirt. In 1978, two kids in Los Angeles did what every child dreams of. While digging in their backyard, they hit the jackpot. Instead of finding some old coins or a lost toy, they struck gold. Well, green actually. What they hit wasn't a buried treasure chest, but the shiny roof of a Ferrari Dino 246 GTS. And not a Hot Wheels either. This was the real deal, a luxury sports car just chilling under the dirt, as if someone had parked it underground for safekeeping. Naturally, local detectives didn't buy it at first. A buried Ferrari in a quiet neighborhood? It sounded too crazy to be true. But a few shovels and a skip loader later, they confirmed what the kids had found. A vintage Ferrari that had disappeared back in 1974. A guy named Rosendo Cruz had bought it brand new, only to report it stolen a couple of months later. His insurance covered the loss, and that seemed like the end of the story, until a couple of backyard adventurers uncovered the car's secret 4 years later. The big question is, how does someone bury an entire Ferrari in a neighborhood without a single nosy neighbor catching on? This wasn't a hasty job. The car was carefully tucked away, deep enough to stay out of sight for years. When it finally saw daylight again, it was in surprisingly good shape, just a little ding on the taillight, but nothing too dramatic. It's like the dirt had been its own weird version of a protective car cover, shielding the Dino from the elements. And of course, the rumors started flying. Was it a botched insurance scam gone wrong? Did someone have a secret stash and dash plan? Or was it all part of some long-forgotten plot that got abandoned along the way? The mystery of the buried Ferrari had all of Los Angeles buzzing. Urban explorers and car buffs couldn't get enough of the story, and it quickly became one of the city's juiciest tales. An exotic car turned into a suburban myth. But the story didn't end with the discovery. After the car was dug up, it looked a little worse for wear and was turned over to the insurance company. Enter Brad Howard, who bought the beat-up Dino in the late 70s. He wasn't about to let a little dirt and damage keep him from reviving this unique find. Brad went all out on a restoration, bringing the car back to its original eye-catching glory. Now, more than 40 years later, Brad's still holding on to his prized ride, admiring how well that decades-old paint job has held up. He's got no plans to sell, keeping this one-of-a-kind piece of LA history all to himself. 4. The hidden passage beneath their feet. When Gary and Beth Machen spotted their sidewalk buckling, they probably thought it was just some old foundation issue. But no, turns out their driveway had a major secret buried beneath it. After shimmying through a tight opening, they found a hidden tunnel, perfectly preserved since 1895. Inside, a stunning brick archway stood as if it had just been built yesterday. But the real mystery? At the other end of the tunnel, they discovered a pile of dirt, as if someone had started digging and then just left. What on earth was this tunnel used for? A secret hideout? A forgotten escape route? Or maybe it was just a weird DIY project gone wrong? Whatever it was, the Machins now have a real-life historical puzzle right under their feet, and they're digging into the mystery one brick at a time. 5. The mystery tunnel that rocked Brooklyn. A secret tunnel beneath a Brooklyn synagogue? Sounds like something straight out of a spy thriller, right? But nope, this is a real-life drama that had police, cement trucks, and even a few brawls involved. Here's the scoop. In the heart of Crown Heights, a 60-foot tunnel was discovered under the Chabad Lubavitch World Headquarters, better known as 70 and 70 Eastern Parkway, and things got really messy when the police showed up to shut it down. The tunnel wasn't just a quirky find. It was a full-on underground passageway, built without any permits and, let's just say, with some questionable structural planning. In fact, it was so risky that the city's Department of Buildings issued vacate orders for nearby buildings, fearing they could collapse because of the tunnel's lack of proper support. You can probably guess how that went over with the people involved. Chaos ensued. As authorities moved in to seal the tunnel, the scene turned into a full-blown standoff. A group of 12 Hasidic Jewish worshippers had decided to make their stand, sitting in the tunnel to keep the authorities from filling it in. Seriously, people were even barricading themselves with bits of wood to stop the cement trucks from doing their job. And of course, the cops weren't exactly thrilled about this impromptu protest. Cue a scuffle, some irritant gas, and a few arrests for good measure. All of this drama over a hole in the wall. But why, you ask? Would anyone want to build a tunnel under such a famous religious site in the first place? Well, here's where it gets even more interesting. There's been a long-running debate within the Chabad Lubavitch community about expanding the synagogue. Some believe it should have been done years ago, especially given how cramped it can get with worshippers and visitors from all over the world. Others, however, think expansion should have been handled differently. Some members even believe their late leader, the rabbi, is still very much alive in a spiritual sense, and that expanding the synagogue would honor his vision. It seems like a group of younger, more fervent followers, perhaps inspired by that vision, took matters into their own hands and built this secret tunnel to connect the synagogue to neighboring buildings. A way to expand, but without dealing with all that slow-moving bureaucracy. Naturally, the synagogue leadership was not thrilled when they found out. And with the city stepping in to shut everything down, the whole situation blew up, with accusations flying and a lot of people shaking their heads. In the end, the tunnel was sealed off with cement, and the chaos calmed down, but it left a lot of questions hanging. Was this just a misguided attempt to keep the faith alive, or was there more going on behind the scenes? Either way, it was an unusual and dramatic chapter in Brooklyn's religious history. 6. The hidden treasure in the attic. Sometimes the biggest treasures aren't buried in the ground. They're hidden right under your roof. That's exactly what happened when a Massachusetts family made a jaw-dropping discovery in their attic. While preparing to move out of their house, they found something truly unexpected. A box tucked away in the floorboards, and inside, a cool $46,000 in cash. The family had long suspected that a relative from years past might have hidden something valuable in the house, but they never imagined they'd find this. So, before packing up and leaving, they reached out to Keith, a local treasure hunter, to see if he could help uncover any buried secrets. Keith was up for the challenge and brought his metal detector to a spot in the attic that had been giving off some pretty interesting signals. The area felt off, almost like it was trying to hide something. Sure enough, after digging through a few layers of scrap wood and debris, he found it, the hidden box. When they opened it up, the contents were even more unexpected. Cash stacked neatly, amounting to a whopping $46,000. It's unclear exactly why the relative stashed it away there all those years ago, but the timing of the discovery couldn't have been better. Keith, who's used to uncovering buried relics, said this find was one for the books. For the family, it was a moving day surprise they won't soon forget, and proof that sometimes the greatest treasures aren't buried in the ground, but tucked away in the most unexpected places. 7. Kansas City's hidden tunnel. So here's a fun twist in the world of city construction. Crews in Kansas City were digging up a leaking water main at 27th and Cleveland, expecting to deal with some basic plumbing issues. But what did they find instead? A forgotten tunnel buried right beneath their feet. Talk about an unexpected plot twist in your standard fix-it job. This tunnel, which was sealed off back in the 80s, had been hidden away in plain sight for decades, keeping its secrets under the city streets. It was built way back in the 1940s. Though the water main, it was built over dates all the way back to 1904. It was designed for a pretty simple reason, to keep kids from having to cross a busy street on their way to Greenwood School. In other words, it was a shortcut for the neighborhood kids, a sort of underground passage that let them avoid the traffic above. But here's the thing, it wasn't just a straight tunnel. Oh no, that would have been way too easy. This thing was laid out like an underground maze, with an X-shaped design that required kids to make a couple of turns to get across the street. If you were a kid back in the day, you couldn't just dash across the street. You had to shimmy down a couple of corridors, maybe take a turn here and there. It sounds like the kind of thing that could have led to some great childhood adventures, or maybe a few small misunderstandings if you got lost. Of course, the tunnel wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. When locals reminisce about it, they mention that it eventually became a bit of a haven for rats and trash after it was sealed off. Still, despite its rough state, it holds a special place in the hearts of those who grew up with it. Some even recall it as a cleaner, brighter spot when it was still in use, before the streets above got so busy and the neighborhood changed. But now it's facing its end. Well, at least part of it is. With plans to upgrade the water main, the tunnel will be partially demolished to make room for new infrastructure. That's right, folks. They're literally going to plow through history to get to the plumbing. Still, for a brief moment, this tunnel will stand as a quirky reminder of the city's past, and a little piece of childhood nostalgia that managed to stay hidden all these years. Sometimes, the best discoveries happen when you least expect them. 8. An ancient escape route in Jerusalem. You know how archaeological discoveries usually take years of careful digging, planning, and educated guesswork? Well, that's not how it went down in Jerusalem. Usually these digs are like a treasure hunt, with experts going over and over the same spots until something finally gives up its secrets. Some sites never do, but sometimes the past just decides to pop up, uninvited, with minimal effort. The archaeologists were originally on the hunt to uncover the main road of Jerusalem from the time of the Second Temple, but instead, they got an unexpected surprise: an ancient underground tunnel. Now, this wasn't some covert operation or hidden treasure chest. It was a legit path beneath the city, and it appeared totally out of nowhere. One day, the archaeologists were digging off to the side, expecting nothing special, when whoosh, the debris just shifted and bam, they were standing at the entrance to a seriously cool ancient passageway. Talk about an accidental win. And it wasn't just a little hole in the ground either. They uncovered 70 yards of a solid, hand-dug underground sewer system. And they didn't even have to do any serious digging to find it. No shovels, no sweat, just good old-fashioned luck and a lot of history waiting to be discovered. As they wandered inside, they could practically feel the history seeping through the walls. The stones, perfectly aligned after over 2,000 years, still had stories to tell. This sewer wasn't just for flushing away waste. It was the main system that channeled rainwater away from the city, including from the Temple Mount. It even diverted all that water to the Pool of Siloam. So, while it might not sound glamorous, it was a pretty big deal for the ancient city. But the plot thickens, because when the Romans came to town and started laying siege to Jerusalem, this sewer system turned into something much more than a simple drainage solution. It became an escape route for locals trying to outrun the Romans. The tunnel led straight out of the city into the valley, and it became the perfect secret getaway for anyone who knew about it. In fact, many people who fled to Masada might have used this very path to make their great escape. And just when you thought it couldn't get any cooler, they found some relics inside. Pottery shards, coins, and other goodies from before 70 CE when the Romans took the city. So, yeah, this wasn't just a handy escape route. It was also a hideout for a while. Guess it was more than just a drainage problem. 9. Secrets beneath Mount Vesuvius. Tucked away under Mount Vesuvius, this mysterious tunnel complex is the stuff of legend. Imagine walking into a dark, twisting passage that feels like you're heading straight into Mordor. Yeah, that's what this entrance looks like something straight out of an epic adventure movie. But the weirdest part, it was deliberately filled in and hidden away for thousands of years. It's as if someone didn't want us to know what was going on down there. Yet, over the decades, investigators have uncovered clues that suggest the tunnels were more than just a practical shortcut. They were perhaps the site of ancient rituals, a true portal to the underworld. Talk about an upgrade from your average basement. As you venture deeper into the labyrinth, it feels like you're in a secret world. The tunnels are narrow, twisting, and steep, giving a dramatic flair to every step. The whole thing reeks of theatrics, almost like the journey was just as important as the destination. And then, there's the temperature, getting warmer as you go. A reminder that you're not just beneath any mountain, but one that's had a very explosive past. Some of these tunnels even lead to a hot spring, what some believe could be the mythical river Styx. If you squint, you can almost see the ghosts of ancient Romans crossing the waters. their futures foretold by an oracle in the deepest, hottest part of the earth. If that's not a real-life adventure, we don't know what is. 10. The Underground Secrets of Cappadocia. Cappadocia, ever heard of it? It's this jaw-dropping region right smack in the middle of Turkey, and it's been home to just about every major civilization you can think of, from the Persians to the Romans. The history here is so thick, you'd need a chainsaw to cut through it. Seriously, it's like every time you turn around, you're bumping into a new layer of the past. Now, when you think of Cappadocia, you're probably picturing those famous fairy chimneys, tall, twisted rock formations that look like they were plucked straight out of a fantasy novel. And yeah, they're epic, but that's just the surface. Literally, beneath your feet is a whole underground world of secrets and surprises. Check this out. Cappadocia isn't just about what's above ground. Oh no. Turns out there's a crazy labyrinth of underground cities buried below the rock formations. One of them, called Derinkuyu, is a sprawling metropolis that was discovered by accident in 1963 by a farmer who was like, "Hey, why is the water draining into this hole?" So he digs and finds a city the size of a small town, carved right into the stone. But here's the wild part. These cities are ancient, like ancient. We're talking over 12,000 years old. So who built them? Good question. Archaeologists are still debating it, but some think they were created by the Hittites. Others, though, are like, nope, these things are way older than that. Imagine an ancient underground metropolis that predates even the pyramids. Wild, right? And the more we dig into Cappadocia, the crazier it gets. The underground cities, they were likely used as hiding spots from invaders or natural disasters. Think ancient survivalists, but with way cooler architecture. There are even rumors that these tunnels connect to each other, forming a hidden underground network. It's like an ancient Airbnb, but underground and way more hardcore. So, if you ever find yourself in Turkey, make sure Cappadocia is on your list. Just don't forget to bring a guide. You don't want to get lost in the depths of history. If you stumbled upon a tunnel, would you go down it and discover where it leads, or leave the adventure to someone else?